There is a side of yourself you do not show the world. You may think it is gone, buried under years of self-control, manners, and social training, but it remains. It watches you from the edge of your consciousness, sometimes whispering in your dreams, sometimes slipping out in moments of anger, fear, or sudden inspiration. Carl Jung called this part of you the shadow. It is not darkness for the sake of darkness. It is everything you have pushed away, hidden, or denied about yourself, your impulses, raw desires, repressed emotions, and even untapped strengths. Jung believed that until you face this shadow, your life will remain incomplete. You will walk through the world with a mask, never truly knowing why certain patterns repeat or why you feel an unexplained emptiness. The shadow forms early. From childhood, we learn what is acceptable and what is not. We are rewarded for being polite, obedient, and predictable. We are punished or shamed when we express something that does not fit the script. A child who cries too much may learn to hide sadness. A child who shows anger might be told they are bad, so they swallow their rage until it hardens into resentment. Over time, entire pieces of our personality are exiled. But nothing we bury inside disappears. It remains alive, influencing our choices from behind the scenes. Jung saw this as one of the greatest tragedies of modern life. We are taught to show only fragments of who we are, while the rest of our being grows in the dark, misunderstood, and feared. You can see the shadow at work in moments when your emotions seem disproportionate to the situation. You lash out over something trivial and later wonder why you lost control. You feel an irrational dislike for someone you barely know, sensing something irritating without reason. Often, what we hate in others reflects what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. Jung called this projection. Instead of seeing our own envy, arrogance, or fear, we assign these traits to someone else and react as if they are the problem. In doing this, we avoid the uncomfortable truth: the shadow is not out there, it is inside us. For Jung, confronting the shadow was not about moral perfection, but about becoming whole. The shadow contains qualities that, if integrated, could bring immense strength. Hidden aggression could be transformed into assertiveness. Denied selfishness could teach you to prioritize your needs healthily. Even envy could reveal what you truly desire. But to claim these hidden treasures, you must step into the inner darkness without flinching. Facing the shadow is not easy. It demands honesty that can feel like self-betrayal. You may have built your identity on being kind, selfless, or disciplined, only to discover a part of you that is selfish, cruel, or chaotic. The first instinct is to reject it, to say, "This is not me." Yet Jung warned that the more we fight the shadow, the stronger it becomes. Its energy does not vanish, it turns against us, appearing in nightmares, sabotaging relationships, or erupting unexpectedly. What we refuse to face, we are doomed to repeat. The path to integration begins with observation. Watch your reactions. Notice when someone irritates you without a clear reason. Ask yourself what part of you they might be reflecting. Pay attention to your dreams, where the shadow often speaks in symbols and images. Keep a journal, not for judgment, but to record these encounters honestly. Over time, patterns emerge. You may see that the traits you despise most in others are those you have long suppressed. But Jung's vision went beyond self-awareness. He believed the shadow is linked to your life's purpose. The qualities you reject often hold the keys to your meant path. Perhaps you were taught to silence your ambition, so you live a safe but unfulfilled life. Your shadow might hold the boldness to take risks and pursue something greater. Perhaps you were told to be realistic, so you shut down your imagination. Your shadow might be guarding your creative force. The shadow does not just reveal what you fear, it reveals what you need. Society does not make this journey easier. We live in a world that rewards surface appearances. We are told to curate our image, to show only the polished, acceptable parts of ourselves. Social media amplifies this pressure, creating a constant performance of happiness, success, and certainty. In such a climate, admitting weakness or inner conflict feels dangerous. Yet Jung would argue that without embracing these hidden parts, you will remain a stranger to yourself. The cost of denying the shadow is a life lived on autopilot, chasing goals that are not truly yours. Shadow work is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing dialogue with yourself. Each time you face a part of your shadow, you reclaim a piece of your soul. Over years, this builds into a profound transformation. You begin to act from authenticity rather than habit. You stop fearing your emotions and learn to channel them. Triggers lose their power, for you understand what they were awakening within you. This is the beginning of true freedom, not the absence of struggle, but the ability to move through it with self-awareness. With each step into the shadow, you come closer to the life that was waiting for you, not the life prescribed by others, not the one built to please or impress, but the one that resonates with every hidden part of your being. The deeper you go into your shadow, the more you will understand why your life unfolded the way it did. The people who hurt you, the failures that crushed you, the chances you were too afraid to take, they all carry the fingerprints of the parts of yourself you abandoned. The shadow is not just a personal archive of your inner life, it is the architect of your unconscious choices. Until you bring it into the light, you are playing a game you are unaware of, following rules you never agreed to. Jung often compared the shadow to the myths of ancient cultures. In countless stories, the hero must descend into the underworld, confront a monster, and return with a treasure. This was never just fantasy. It was the human psyche telling its own truth. The monster is the shadow. The underworld is your subconscious mind. The treasure is the strength, creativity, and clarity you gain when you stop running from yourself. But the journey is never safe. Just as in the myths, the shadow will test you, confuse you, and at times make you doubt your return. One of the most painful truths you will face in this work is that the shadow is not purely made of what you call bad. It also contains the very best of you, the talents you were too shy to show, the dreams you abandoned to fit in, the voice you silenced to avoid conflict. These are called your golden shadows. They are no less hidden, but they are hidden for different reasons. Maybe your gift made others uncomfortable. Maybe your joy was met with envy. Maybe your strength frightened someone who wanted control over you. So you hid it. And in hiding it, you began to believe you never had it. This is why the shadow can feel so deceptive. It is not just a pile of dark emotions. It is a storage room for everything that was unwelcome in the world you grew up in. Part of your life's purpose will always be tied to unlocking it. Bringing these qualities back is not easy because it will require you to become someone unfamiliar to those around you. People might not like the version of you who says no. They might not support the version of you who takes up space, refuses to be overlooked, or dares to succeed. Integrating the shadow will inevitably disrupt your relationships because the person you are becoming cannot live by the same silent agreements that kept you small. This is where many people turn back. They begin the work, they see what is hiding in the dark, and they feel the pull to bring it out, but the cost seems too high. So they return to the mask, telling themselves they are fine as they are. But that is not peace. That is stagnation disguised as stability. You may avoid temporary discomfort, but you also avoid growth. You avoid becoming whole. The truth is that your shadow will demand your attention whether you face it or not. Suppressed anger can turn into illness. Unacknowledged desires can warp into addictions. Denied talents can sour into bitterness toward those who live boldly. You might think you are keeping your shadow under control, but it is steering your life from the depths. The more you refuse it, the louder it knocks. Jung's work was radical because he did not see the shadow as something to destroy. He saw it as something to embrace. The integration process is not a battle, it is a reconciliation. This means having the courage to sit with the parts of yourself that make you uncomfortable, not to justify them, but to understand them. It means asking your anger what it is protecting, asking your fear what it is warning you about, and asking your jealousy what it is pointing you toward. Every dark emotion carries information. When you start listening, the shadow transforms from an enemy into a guide. As you walk further into this process, you might notice something strange. Life starts giving you tests that mirror the parts of your shadow you are working on. If you have been avoiding conflict, you may find yourself in situations where you are forced to speak up. If you have been hiding your talent, you may be placed in a position where you must display it. These moments are not coincidences, they are invitations. Each time you act in alignment with the parts you have reclaimed, you stitch yourself back together. And with each stitch, the meaning of your life becomes clearer. You stop chasing vague goals because you feel you should. You start moving toward experiences that feel alive in your bones. You begin to see that your purpose is not something you find out there. It is something you uncover within. The shadow was never just an obstacle. It was the map. The moment you begin to live with your shadow instead of against it, the world seems to shift. Life doesn't necessarily become easier, but you are no longer at war with yourself, so external battles lose their power to break you. You stop wasting energy on self-denial and no longer need constant distraction to numb the ache of incompleteness. The internal noise quiets, not because the shadow disappears, but because it is finally acknowledged. You begin to notice patterns, how you unconsciously repeated your parents' fears, how you made choices to avoid shame rather than seek joy, how you chose friends and lovers who mirrored familiar roles instead of truly fitting you. With each realization, the illusion that your life just happened dissolves. You see the architecture of your life and your own hand in its creation. This is painful because it forces you to accept responsibility, but it is also freeing because responsibility is power. If you build this life unconsciously, you can rebuild it consciously. The shadow teaches that freedom is not about doing whatever you want, but about no longer being driven by unseen forces. It is about acting from choice, not compulsion. You can leave a toxic relationship without being pulled back by the fear of abandonment. You can take career risks without the memory of failure strangling your courage. You can express love without cynicism, no longer ruled by the fear of its loss. Paradoxically, the more you integrate your shadow, the more you will feel. The protective numbness melts. Old grief resurfaces. Forgotten anger stirs. Buried joy surges, sometimes frighteningly so, because it feels too big, too unfamiliar. This flood of emotion is not a setback, but the body's way of thawing. You are feeling again because you are alive again. The outside world may resist your change. People comfortable with your old self may push back, accusing you of becoming selfish, arrogant, or distant. They are not wrong in seeing you as different, you are different. But their judgment reflects the role you played in their lives, not who you truly are. When you step out of an old role, you disrupt other scripts. Not everyone will want to rewrite them. Some will leave. Let them. If they cannot see your true self, they were only ever in love with the mask. A deeper truth emerges. The shadow was never a prison, but a messenger. Its darkness concealed a gift meant to be opened slowly, over a lifetime. Every confrontation with it strengthens you, makes you more honest, more at home in your own skin. You realize that your greatest fears often hold the potential for healing. Integration is not a finish line, but a way of living. You will meet new shadows as you grow, in love, success, failure, and loss. But instead of hiding, you will greet them, asking what they have to teach. Life stops feeling like a series of battles and starts feeling like a series of initiations. Each challenge deepens your self-knowledge. Each tended wound becomes wisdom. You may even feel gratitude for past pain, not because it was good or fair, but because it shaped you into someone who sees what others miss, someone who can bear their own being without breaking, someone who knows that true safety is built within. That is the shadow's gift when you stop running. That is what it means to become whole. When you finally step into the open with your shadow at your side, you realize how different the air feels. It is not lighter as people imagine, not some sudden bliss that erases all struggle. Instead, it is heavier, but in a sacred way, the weight of truth resting on your shoulders. You carry yourself differently because you know you are no longer pretending. You are no longer bending yourself into shapes to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Every step you take feels deliberate, anchored. This is what it means to walk in your own gravity. At this point, life tests you. It always does when you cross a threshold of growth. The test might come as betrayal, loss, or an opportunity that forces you to choose between the old version of yourself and the one you have become. Most people fail these tests not because they lack strength, but because they do not yet trust the person they have uncovered within. But you have sat in the fire of your own becoming. You have walked through the noise of self-doubt and the temptation to turn back. So when the test arrives, you do not flinch. You remember who you are. The changes are subtle at first. You notice that when someone criticizes you, the sting is brief. It no longer spirals into a storm inside your head. When a situation turns uncertain, you no longer feel the desperate need to control every outcome. There is a patience in you now, a willingness to let life reveal itself without ripping the curtain open. You can sit with discomfort without letting it devour you. This is the quiet power that people around you will sense but not always understand. And then something remarkable happens. You begin to meet others who are also carrying their shadows with dignity. These are not people who have lived perfect lives, quite the opposite. They have been broken in their own ways, and in being broken, they have learned the art of rebuilding. Conversations with them feel different. There is no posturing, no need to hide the messy parts of life. You speak the same unspoken language of those who have met themselves in the dark and returned with something worth sharing. This is when you understand that integration is not a solitary act. The more whole you become, the more you draw to yourself those who are also on the path. It is not about forming a circle of people who think the same way, but about finding those who have earned their truth the hard way, through living, through losing, through loving and surviving. And in their presence, you realize that your journey was never only about you. Your wholeness becomes a mirror for others, an invitation for them to stop running from their own shadows. There will still be days when the darkness inside stirs again. Perhaps you hear an old voice, or a memory reopens like an old wound. But you no longer treat these moments as proof of failure. They are reminders that healing is not erasing, it is learning to live fully with what has happened to you. It is remembering that scars are not a sign of weakness, but of endurance. You carry them as proof that you are still here. In time, your life starts to feel less like a survival story and more like an unfolding. You begin to see beauty in places you once overlooked, in a stranger's kindness, in the quiet of early mornings, in the way the wind carries the scent of rain. These moments are not distractions from the pain of the world. They are the balance to it. They are proof that even after all you have faced, there is still something worth being here for. And this is the final truth the shadow gives you. Wholeness does not make you untouchable. Life will still hurt. People will still disappoint. Plans will still fall apart. But none of it will ever undo you, because you now know that the strength you sought outside was always buried within. You are not unbreakable because nothing can touch you. You are unbreakable because even when you break, you will not lose yourself. There is a moment in every life when you realize the world is not here to protect you. It is not a cruel revelation, though it may feel like one at first. It is simply the nature of existence. You arrive in this life raw, trusting, full of unspoken expectations, that love will always be pure, that promises will be kept, that kindness will be repaid in kind. And for a while, these illusions can hold. But eventually, reality reveals itself in the form of betrayal, loss, and the subtle erosion of the safety you thought was guaranteed. This is the first breaking. It can come early, in childhood, when someone you depend on fails you. It can come later, in the form of heartbreak, financial ruin, or a sudden shift in life's course. The form does not matter. What matters is the shattering, the recognition that the people you thought could never hurt you can, and sometimes will. That the systems you believed in can collapse without warning. That the person you thought you were is not always the one who will survive the storms ahead. In that moment, you have a choice. You can fight to hold on to the illusions, patching them together with denial and hope, pretending nothing has changed. Or you can step fully into the pain, acknowledging that the ground beneath you is not as solid as you once believed. This choice is not easy. The second path, the one that embraces the truth, will feel like walking into darkness with no guarantee of light at the other end. But it is the only path that leads to the kind of strength that cannot be taken from you. Walking into that darkness means meeting parts of yourself you have avoided for years. The anger you buried because it was not acceptable to show, the fear you hid because you thought it made you weak, the longing you denied because it felt too vulnerable. You begin to realize that these pieces are not enemies to be destroyed, but fragments of your own wholeness that you have been taught to disown. Facing them is uncomfortable, sometimes unbearable, But each time you look directly at what you fear inside yourself, the shadows lose a little of their power. The world will not applaud this work. There is no public celebration for a person who learns to sit quietly with their pain. No parade for the one who chooses to stop pretending. In fact, you may find that some people pull away when you begin to change. Your new honesty may unsettle them, not because you have wronged them, but because it forces them to confront their own illusions. It can be lonely work, this dismantling of your false self. But it is in the silence of this loneliness that you begin to hear your own voice again, the one you buried under years of noise. As you peel away these layers, you also notice how much of your suffering came from resisting reality. You wanted people to be what they could not be. You wanted situations to unfold the way you had scripted them in your mind. Every unmet expectation became a wound, every deviation from your plan a source of outrage. But reality is indifferent to our scripts. The more tightly we cling to how we think things should be, the more we suffer. When you begin to release this grip, something shifts. It is not that you stop caring. It is that you stop breaking yourself against what you cannot control. This is not a philosophy of passivity. It is not about letting life trample over you without resistance. It is about discernment, knowing what is worth your fight and what is simply the river of life moving in its own direction. You learn to reserve your energy for battles that matter and to let go of the ones that are only the ego clinging to the need to be right or in control. In doing so, you discover a kind of freedom you didn't know existed, the freedom to meet life as it is, not as you demand it to be. In time, this practice becomes less of an effort and more of a way of being. You no longer react to every slight, every disappointment, every perceived insult. There is a quiet strength in you now, a steadiness that others may mistake for detachment. But it is not detachment, it is rootedness. You are no longer tossed around by every wave because you have anchored yourself in something deeper than circumstance. You have stopped looking for the world to validate your worth. You carry it with you. And this is where the transformation begins to take root. You stop needing to be invincible. You realize that being untouchable is not about avoiding pain, but about no longer letting pain define you. It is about seeing clearly that life will hurt you, sometimes deeply, but that this hurt does not have to be the end of you. The person you were before the breaking might not survive, but the person who emerges afterward is not weaker. They are forged in fire, tempered by the reality of what it means to live. When you understand this, fear loosens its grip. You stop running from the possibility of loss because you know you can survive it. You stop clinging so desperately to what you have because you understand that holding on too tightly often destroys the very thing you want to preserve. You meet life with open hands, knowing that whatever comes will shape you, and whatever leaves will make space for what's next. You are no longer the person who believed nothing bad could happen. You are no longer the person who thought safety was something guaranteed by others. You are the one who has seen the truth and chosen to live anyway. And in that choice, you have found something far greater than safety. You have found resilience. You have found yourself.